Pesach, which is a time of Zman Cherutenu, a time of our liberation, a time which the name itself reflects Hashem skipping over the houses, and as well it reflects the fact that the Jewish people were able to skip over the normal operative levels of coming closer to God, and they too, Mashcheni Acharecha Narutza, they too were able to skip and jump and meet the divine on this night. And therefore the question that it behooves us to ask is the festival which represents this skipping, this jumping, this hopping, this very erratic type of movement. How are we to understand that we call the night of Pesach, or in Chutz La'aretz, the nights of Pesach, Leil HaSeder, the night of order? Right? When people are talking to each other, they say, who are you having for Seder night? Where are you going for Seder night? The night of Pesach is called Seder. Seder means order. How are we to understand that the time which represents Pesach, to skip, to jump, that very night, the very time we are celebrating the experience of Pesach, we call it Leil HaSeder, the night of order? And I'd like to try to understand three levels of our title today, Seder, higher order, to try to understand in a very broad strokes what is the Seder that we are celebrating tonight, looking more specifically at the Haggadah, what is the second higher order we are celebrating tonight, and then finally to take a look at the Kadesh Orchatz, the 15 steps, and more specifically look at the Seder, look at the order itself, and see on a third level the higher order that is found on the Seder night. So again, if we ask our question, how are we to understand Ma Mekapel B'tocho Shem Zeh, the asterisk in 2, what is involved in this name? How does it reflect the Mahuto Shel Halayla, the essence of the night? So I'd like to do an essay from Rav Moshe Rice in Kriyei Moed, where he says very beautifully, he quotes the Maharal of Prague at the end of source 4 in the asterisk, and he says, Kemo sheyesh lo olam hateva seder mesudar noheg al pi tivo, just like in the world of nature, there's a seder, there's an order. The sun rises, the sun sets, right? There is a systematic order to the natural events of the world. There are seasons, there are times. Kach yesh l'nisim seder gamkein. The supernatural, the miraculous, also has a seder, also has an order. And he says at the end of 5, Achen nir'im hanisim kemashu charig hamenugad l'chol seder. It seems to us that the idea of a nace, idea of a miracle, idea of something supernatural is something that breaks out of the order, breaks out of the Seder. Ulam kayam gam Seder shoneh. However, there is a different realm of order. Haminahe bit maslul na'aleh yoter, which is operating on a higher level. This is a Seder shel nisim, and this is the level that Klal Yisrael ultimately have to achieve. Let's try to explain what this means, that the world has a Seder, and that the Jewish people have a realm called the Seder of Nisim, the Seder of the miraculous. So when we look at the world around us, the order, the Seder of the natural is quite obvious to us. We all familiar, continue on the next page in source 6, on the pasuk, Vayamideim la'ad la'olam, chok natam v'lo yavor. Kadosh Baruch Hu established them should be for all generations, that there's a chok, that there are set laws, v'lo yavor, and we don't deviate from them. So explains Rav Rice, a farmer has to know that there are seasons. He has to know when to expect the rain. He has to know when to plant. He has to know when to harvest. That's a Seder. That's a natural order. And likewise for us. Could you imagine if one day was 50 hours and the next day the sun set after 2? we would have no sense of being able to regulate our lives. Just see, and I'm sure many of you experience with the time change, what kids are like the first week or so after either the fall or spring change of time. It's like jet lag has hit your house. The kids don't know when to wake up. They don't know when to go to sleep. Everything's erratic. That's the problem when you break out of Seder. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when He created the world with Seder. That's the concept He continues in this source. Abasar ma'amaros nivra olam, in 10 utterances the world was created. Because in fact the entire world was created on the first day. And then every day Hashem had whatever needed to come forth. Whether it was the grass, whether it was the luminaries to come forth. So that everything had a set order, had a set time. The world works according to a certain Seder, a certain order. That is the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. However, my